Hey everyone, welcome back to the most interactive wrestling show on the interweb. Welcome back to Wrestling with Omer. And boy, do we have a doozy to talk about today. We got CM Punk. Yes, company man, or after this report, probably not company man, CM Punk in the news today with a huge story about his frustrations with AEW that have apparently come to some level of a boiling point, enough to where these frustrations are being reported. Fightful has this big story that I'll talk about in just a second. Before we get to that, though, be sure to hit that like button, guys. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts as well, be sure to hit that follow button and leave a 5-star review. I can see we already have multiple people already here voicing their feelings towards this report. Again, the big news of the day, CM Punk reportedly frustrated over a few things in AEW, and not all of them are related according to the report, but we definitely can see that CM Punk is not the happiest of campers as of late. Surf Wrestling is in the chat saying, I got mixed emotions over Moxley versus Punk. I think after this report, I really don't, but we'll talk about that. Surf Wrestling also says we got to discuss why Tony Khan is giving away 5-star matches on Dynamite when they could be a major debut at a pay-per-view. Well, I'll answer that question very quickly before we get to the Punk news. The reason why you see these big matches on Dynamite is very similar to why I think you used to see in the Attitude Era an emphasis on building to your TV show. It's because these are primarily television companies. These are content creators, right? And whoever's paying them the most amount of money to distribute and make their content is going to be who they're going to make sure they give their prime time, their prime time content to, like their prime content to. There you go. And at the end of the day, AEW makes the most amount of money from its TV deal. That's where most of these content creator companies like WWE or whatever, whoever's paying them, that's where their revenue comes from, the bulk of it at least. The rest of it, the pay-per-view numbers, that's great. And that is important when we're talking about pro wrestling. It's important when we're talking about combat sports. It's important when we're talking about growing your company. Because you do want to get to a point where the pay-per-views as well are seen as an asset in this content creation machine, so that when AEW's TV deal is up, they can eventually get a better deal and maybe sell that to a platform like WWE did. But at the end of the day, right now, the most of their money is made off of TV. That's why you see a lot of big matches on TV, on Dynamite or Rampage on a week-to-week basis. Well, less so Rampage, but you get my drift. Surf Wrestling also said things just don't look right. Maybe I'm tripping, but it's just very rare Dynamite giveaway major turning point matches like these. Mox did a jab at Punk saying he came to AEW for the money. I mean, Punk admitted that. Punk basically said on a podcast with Renee Young, I think like a year before he even went to AEW, that he would only return to wrestling for, one, if it was the right fit, and two, if it was for, quote, a boatload of money. Because the money's important at the end of the day. Anyway, you know what else is important, guys? This news. So, this is according to Fightful. Fightful select Sean Ross Sapp with this wonderful reporting here on CM Punk, quote, CM Punk, quote, may have almost decided not to come to Dynamite, unquote, last night. And so that was the big headline. So CM Punk, last night, we saw him open the show. He opened and he called out Moxley. But before he called out Moxley, he made a reference to Hangman Adam Page. And I covered this in a video I released earlier before this news broke. And in it, I said, he calls out Hangman Adam Page. And apparently, when he did so, this was not part of the plan. There's not supposed to be a mention of Hangman Adam Page. There was not supposed to be a mention of that feud at all. This whole promo, this whole segment was supposed to build the match between Jon Moxley and CM Punk. That was the end goal. However, before Punk got to that, he apparently went off script, went into, quote, business for himself, and he laid into Hangman Adam Page. He called him out, said, we're having a rematch for the AEW World title right now, sat in the ring, waited for him, and then no one showed up, right? And then he called him a coward, and he said, and I quote, I hope the apology is as vociferous as the disrespect was. Now, a lot of people, including myself, were reading into that with a little bit of skepticism as far as whether or not that was real. You know, it would be very believable if CM Punk wanted to do another match with Hangman Adam Page down the line, and maybe that was like a little bit of a callback to that. Maybe he's sowing this or planting the seeds for that down the line, right? Either way, I think a lot of people felt a little weird when they said that coward line. Now we found out that Hangman Page not only did not know about this, AEW didn't know about this, CM Punk was the only one who knew about this. Apparently, there's a backstory where CM Punk has a little bit of animosity towards Hangman Adam Page. So the Fightful Select report, I'm not going to read it word for word. If you want to, please go subscribe to FightfulSelect.com. Sean Ross App does a lot of great reporting over there. But the Fightful Select report basically says that CM Punk was angry with Hangman Adam Page, frustrated, upset with Hangman Adam Page over a line in a promo on the Go Home Dynamite to Double or Nothing. And apparently it was the Colt Cabana line. This is directly from the report. From Punk's end of things, there was a Hangman promo that had alluded to Punk's issues with Colt Cabana that happened, and it didn't sit well with Punk. So CM Punk and Colt Cabana has been, for years now, for a very long time, one of the weirdest, like, taboo things in pro wrestling, because you didn't hear, so it made a lot of noise initially, but then it kind of just went away because Punk refused to talk about it. Colt Cabana refused to talk about it. These are two people who used to be the bestest of friends, and then they just had a huge rift over this lawsuit over the Colt Cabana podcast appearance that Punk had, the infamous Colt Cabana podcast appearance he had. So Hangman Adam Page apparently went a step too far in CM Punk's eyes with this line, including Colt Cabana or referencing Colt Cabana and Punk's issues with Colt Cabana. And CM Punk apparently has held this animosity since then, or held that with him for the past few months, and he let it out on live TV, and he did it in a way that kind of buried Hangman, because at the end of the day, if you're Hangman Adam Page, what are you going to do? Right? And I think the report even talks about this. Like, if you're Hangman Adam Page, right, CM Punk goes off the script. I know AEW doesn't have script, but he goes into business for himself, right? And you're sitting back there and you're watching this. You're not going to, like, run out there and have an impromptu match. Like, because then that's going to take away time from the rest of the show. It's going to take shine away from what are you going to do? It's a lose-lose situation. That's what Punk did. CM Punk put Hangman Adam Page in a lose-lose situation, and it was not good for Hangman Adam Page. It honestly it's taking some shine away from the Moxley Punk match, as hot as that was, and that angle was that they ran on Dynamite, and it's making CM Punk look bad, and it's making him look petty. A lot of this makes CM Punk look petty. And I'm not someone who wants to go out of his way and say,
oh, you see, I warned you, CM Punk had these issues.
No. I'm one of those guys who was like, CM Punk coming back to pro wrestling is a good thing, because he's obviously still got the desire for it. He's obviously good enough in the ring, and he's great enough on promos, and he's a name that AEW really needs to grow and expand. Don't believe me? Just look at the merch, look at the ratings, look at when did they do their biggest business? When did they sell out the United Center? When did they sell out 3 arenas in Chicago? Sell out arenas in Chicago, or the Chicago-ish area, like 3 times in a week. It was when CM Punk came into the company. So, again, I understand that I understand that Punk might be upset or whatever, but this doesn't seem to me to be like something that needed to be aired out on live TV and bury the dude. Bury the dude who's a pillar of the company, right? It's not like CM Punk. It's not like Hangman Adam Page, I should say, like injured CM Punk or was reckless in the ring with CM Punk or what have you. But no. This was an issue where CM Punk thought that Hangman Adam Page went too far, and instead of confronting him, instead of saying, "Hey man, I didn't like that. Here's why." Like a normal human being, CM Punk instead goes out there and says this thing and makes Hangman Page look like a coward, or tries to make him look like a coward and tries to do a little bit of one-upsmanship, whatever you want to call what that was. He does that. Who benefits from that? Not CM Punk, because now he looks petty. Hangman Adam Page, now, like, what? You just called him a coward on TV and he didn't show up. Like, if anything, it does, I think, build, at least from the more hardcore fans, a little more sympathy for Hangman Adam Page. But, man, it is not good. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, Andrade team actually worked Omega as they could, and I love how at the end they attacked Dragon Lee. Good job to Ken, and Dragon Lee whispered, good job to Kenny. Yeah. Surf Wrestling also says, Omer, people right now are comparing Drew McIntyre promo this Monday to CM Punk when clearly it's not the same. It's not the same. Not at all. Like, this was not, no. Let's not even compare that. We got Job in the chat saying, well, how does Colt Cabana figure into this feud with Punk and Page? He doesn't. And the weird thing is, you mentioned a feud between Hangman Adam Page and CM Punk. That feud already ended. Punk won the feud. Like that, the Colt Cabana wasn't even named by name in that promo. It was just like a reference to Colt Cabana. Like, that's what CM Punk was upset about with Hangman Adam Page. Now, I will get to the second part of this story, the reason, which is the CM Punk almost not showing up to Dynamite. I will get to that, but I do want to make it clear the reason why I'm talking about this Hangman Adam Page thing separately from the CM Punk almost not showing up thing is because Fightful even says in the report that these two things are not known to be related at this time. So I'm not going to really go into that. Like, could it be part of it? I'm sure, but I doubt that was the nail in the coffin, unless it's really that petty, but I doubt it is. But I mean, yeah, so it's a very weird situation to be in if you're Adam Page. I know John Silver poked a little fun at it because he posted a picture of Adam Page in catering eating, apparently like right after that promo happened. So there's that. At the end of the day, when it comes to this Punk Hangman Adam Page thing, it really is a bunch of nonsense when you really think about it. And apparently, like, there were people in the locker room who were kind of saying, like, "Hey, this is it. This is CM Punk. This is the guy that everyone warned you about, or whatever." Like this perception of Punk on TV, right? That Eddie Kingston talks about, or whatever. It is a real life perception that some wrestlers have experienced backstage, and I'm not saying whether or not that's 100% accurate, but it is a perception that does exist and has existed for a long time, that CM Punk is a bit of a nightmare to deal with sometimes. That CM Punk is a bit petty. He sees himself as above people. Like, and I know Punk probably would never like me saying that or like anyone saying that, but it's true. It's what people have been saying for a while. And I mean, if that's it, right? Man, it's petty. I mean, I hope there's more, but also on the other side of things, Hangman Adam Page, right? This guy is like well known to be one of the politest, nicest guys there is, and like backstage, like everyone just talks about how nice he is. If you ever watch an interview he does, he's the most like chill, introverted guy ever. And for Punk to do that, right? And it's weird. It's just weird for Punk to go and do that, because like, does he not get that the promo was just a promo? Like it's a go home show to the pay-per-view, right? It's a go-home show to a pay-per-view. It's your big return championship match, or your first championship match in over a decade. And like, what is Hangman Adam Page supposed to do? You just go out there and be like, oh, I'm gonna try against CM Punk. No, he's gotta go out there. You gotta go guns a-blazing. Get people excited. It's business. It's business. And CM Punk, of all people, right? You would expect to understand that, but apparently that wasn't it. He didn't like that. Is what it is. Y'all let me know what you guys think about this. Is CM Punk right? Does he have a right to be upset? Let me know in the comment section, or in the chat, I should say. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, Omer, I believe Mark Andrews debuted on October 12th to UK Dynamite. I know he has a connection with Will Ospreay. Is Dynamite going to be in the UK on October 12th? Is that a thing? Is that a real thing? Oh my God! Okay, wow. AEW announces a Tuesday Dynamite, third live October Rampage. Oh my God! Oh, Tuesday Dynamite. It's not in UK though. See, it's not in the UK. You had me for a minute. Oh, okay. No, there's no UK Dynamite coming up that I know of. Stop it. Surf Wrestling. Surf Wrestling also says maybe Punk is jealous of Blackpool Combat Club facing Major up. Coming guys like Daniel Garcia. Yeah, I don't think that's the issue. CM Punk is the AEW World Champion. Now, could part of this be Punk like flirting with the idea of turning heel? I think yes. I mean, he's going to turn heel. He is going to turn heel. He'll never be a heel in Chicago. At the pay-per-view, he's going to get cheered like all hell. Probably not by me, but he's going to get cheered as all hell at the pay-per-view. But outside of Chicago, I mean, he'll get the Punk pop, but then he'll probably get booed when he cuts a promo. And the people will likely be cheering for the opponent during the match. It's just how it is. Now, I do also want to talk about another aspect of this CM Punk news. So here we go. This is important to note. Take all of this with a grain of salt. So CM Punk, apparently, it's reported at least, almost did not show up to AEW Dynamite. So I'm pulling up in the aggregated report from Cultaholic right now. Here we go. On Punk, sources of Fightfuls have claimed that he often expresses his displeasure blatantly, and recently they believe he might quit the company. Okay, I don't know if that much is true, but those close to Punk have also said that, quote, he might have almost decided to stay home instead of coming to the August 17th Dynamite, but they don't believe he would have quit. An AEW veteran noted that he had heard threats being levied by Punk. So there we go. That's the other part of the report. I please ignore the part where they claim that he wanted to quit. Fightful came out and said that was just not true. That he did not. That people don't believe that, or that he did not want to quit. But those close to Punk did say that, quote, he might have almost decided to stay home instead of coming to August 17th Dynamite. So CM Punk, the AEW World Champion, might have just no show to show. And it has people speculating whether or not he will leave the company, or if there's a chance he will leave. And I'll be completely honest with you. I'll be 100% honest with y'all. Could CM Punk leave? Absolutely. He's CM Punk. He did it before. And that's not me trying to be petty. That's not me trying to be a smartass. That's not me trying to rub salt in the wounds or be whatever, right? It's a genuine fact that CM Punk, if he doesn't want to be there, and if he believes that he doesn't need to be there, he won't. He did it before. What's going to stop him from doing it again? And that's not so much a dig at Punk as it is just a reality. Like he would do it, right? Now with Punk, right? With Punk, the idea of him no showing a Dynamite is scary on two fronts. On one hand, he is AEW's biggest and most notable star. Like, that's just truth. And on the other hand, like, it's a recurring trend now. Like, you had MJF, who almost no-showed a pay-per-view match with Wardlow. You have CM Punk, who reportedly thought at least about or considered maybe not showing up to AEW Dynamite on August 17th. Those are major problems when you're really thinking about AEW and where they stand and their and what the backstage environment is right now. Because we know that it's not the best, right? And it was never always going to be sunshines and rainbows with AEW. Like, we know that. We knew that. It was never going to stick around and be the same exact everyone's happy fairy tale land that it was in the beginning. That's just not how things evolve. And like the honeymoon period with AEW, I've mentioned it multiple times. It's been over for a long time, and it's okay. Companies grow. They make mistakes. This is part of the process. AEW had literally all the goodwill in the world, and eventually that was going to erode away. So with CM Punk, do I think that he's going to leave AEW anytime soon? I'm going to lean towards no. He showed up to Dynamite. He said exactly what he wanted to say. No one stopped him. And apparently Tony Khan was in good spirits backstage, so it's not like he was getting any criticism or anything like that from Tony Khan. So there really is no reason for CM Punk to leave outside of like something that we just don't know about. Like could there be something going on backstage that we don't know about? Maybe. But, is it possible he's tired of people kind of calling him out in promos? Maybe that's what it is. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, Omer, when you try to break down MJF and Punk, which one you see insulting Mox and Hangman the most? I mean, for a shoot, it's CM Punk. He insulted Hangman the most because, my God, like you don't do that. You don't do that. Like imagine if the shoe was on the other foot, right? Imagine if Punk said something in a promo Hangman didn't like, and Hangman did the same thing. Punk would be furious. Punk would be all over Twitter. He'd be all over. Come on, like let's not joke. Let's not kid ourselves, right? Like we can't. I know there are a lot of people out there who want to be like on Punk's side, and I understand that. Like CM Punk's still a great wrestler and all that, and I'm not saying like he's irredeemable now. No, but I'm saying he can be wrong, and from what we know so far, he can be wrong, but. Man, like if the shoe was on the other foot, CM Punk would not have responded or just not responded to that. Like, come on. Job in the chat says, what are the chances of the championship match between Mox and Punk next Wednesday? Punk loses and leaves AEW. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the most likely scenario here is that CM Punk ends up either retaining via disqualification for turning fully heel in the process, or they come to some sort of draw, or there's a schmoz finish or double count out, something like that, right? Like that leads to a steel cage match at AEW All Out, or a no DQ match, or this match must have a winner type of match at AEW All Out. I think that's the road that they're going to go down. Tony Khan rarely ever goes down the road of not delivering big at a pay-per-view. Surf Wrestling says, could Punk be trolling, though, like slightly? I mean, he's always trolling. It's wrestling. It's wrestling. Everybody's trolling in wrestling in 2022. Everybody who's entertaining on TV and cutting good promos these days is trolling to an extent when they cut promos. Like, think about the Young Bucks. Their entire gimmick is that they're trolls. Think about Punk. He's been trolling people for years, and that's not. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the best way, because that's entertaining stuff. At the end of the day, that is entertaining stuff. When you're taking those jabs, when you're playing with the crowd, like that is what the promo part of wrestling is all about. Manipulating the audience, getting a reaction out of them, getting them eating out of the palm of your hands. There's not a lot of people out there that are better than CM Punk. Could he be trolling? It's not a question of could he. He is trolling, but that line and the way it was reportedly delivered and the circumstances around it, they're not great. And I'm telling you, like, if the locker room wasn't torn about CM Punk before, I think this is going to make some people think. This is really going to make some people think. It's not great. Surf Wrestling in the chat says, Omer, are we talking about NXT next, bro? Sure. Give me a question about NXT. I have not watched NXT in like weeks, but I know that like Ilya Dragunov, I believe, showed up on NXT TV, if I'm not mistaken. Like I'm gonna be totally honest with you all. I'm gonna be very honest with you all. Like, I have not had time to watch NXT. Like the issue isn't that NXT isn't a good show. Let me be clear. The issue is not that NXT has not been a good show. I've heard it's been a very good show. The issue is I have a certain amount of time that I could dedicate to wrestling, especially with the NFL season coming up, especially with work, especially with all the other things that I do, right? There's a certain amount of time. I prioritize Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, and then a few indie shows that I watch. It's hard for me to get into NXT. Honestly, it's not. I'm going to be totally honest with y'all. It's not a show that's meant for me. Like, it's not a show that is meant for my. I don't even know I'm not even saying my age, but like, it's just not meant for me to watch, if I'm going to be totally honest with y'all. Yeah. Surf Wrestling says we need Trevor for NXT. I don't even think he watches. I mean, he probably does watch. He does watch NXT. So, hey, yeah, OT Graps. You guys want us to talk about NXT on OT Graps? We'll talk about NXT next week on OT Graps live Tuesday night right here, youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling. Surf Wrestling also says, Omer, tell Trevor to make NXT Wrestling Talk live stream soon. Hey, we might have to do that. I know Trevor's been talking about starting his own channel, so we might have to get him to do that. He'd be good doing that. Anyway, last notes on this CM Punk news, because we are wrapping up. We're heading down the home stretch, as they say. So, guys, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Subscribe, youtube.com/Real Take Wrestling. And also be sure to hit that follow button on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this today, and leave us a 5-star review. Last note on the CM Punk news. There is apparently some sentiment in the company. There is some sentiment within the company that thought that this whole thing, like the whole Hangman Adam Page line, there are people who thought that it was completely unfair, which it was. And here's the thing, right? It's one thing for you to call someone out, right, over wanting to do business with them, or wanting to, or calling them out in this way. Or if you want to do business with them, if it's MJF and his gimmick is already that he's a cowardly heel or whatever, then maybe it's more fitting, right? Hangman Adam Page's entire gimmick is about overcoming fears and being courageous and working through your issues. And after everything we've seen with his storyline, this completely undermines his entire story arc, which for a lot of people in pro wrestling, this was one of, if not the best told stories in modern day pro wrestling history. That is a fact. Like there's very little you can say to honestly change my mind about that and change a lot of people's mind about that. And I do think that is one at the core of the biggest issue that people have had with this CM Punk thing. It is that this undermines Hangman Adam Page, his story, his arc, his character, and it just makes it was unnecessary. It was completely unnecessary. Like, what's the payoff going to be? I mean, yeah, CM Punk and Hangman Adam Page might have a match, but apparently CM Punk didn't want to lose to Hangman Adam Page. So you also have that whole thing to deal with. Like, there is so much pettiness. And it undermines a story. It undermines business. It undermines common sense, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens as the story develops. But Surf Wrestling says, yeah, we're heading home. Yeah, it definitely was. Yeah, it was. Guys, thank you guys for joining me. It's been a quick edition of Wrestling with Omer. We do these shows talking about the latest news in pro wrestling, all that stuff. We also have OT Graps on Tuesday nights, like I said. youtube.com/Real Take Sports for all your sporting needs. Reserve Wrestling says Mox versus Punk. Imagine Mox beats Punk. It would be interesting. Here's the thing. If Mox beats Punk next week on Dynamite, you know what's going to happen? I promise you there's going to be a lot of people tuning into that Go Home Dynamite to All Out to find out what the hell is going on. So that's the upside. The downside is they can't pay it off after that. But we'll see what happens, guys. Anyway, be happy, be healthy. We'll see you next time, people.